So this is the second catch-up, and but before I get into this, I'm going to explain a wee bit, because I've realised over the last few days that there's a few different ways that this is going to be coming through now. I recorded the number 67 of the Godcast yesterday, which is called Perspectives, and that came on the back of the first catch-up, which hasn't been released yet, so this is where it might get a wee bit messy to begin with, but if you kind of stick with me, I'll try and explain like the different, the ways that it's coming through, and my intention with these 4 different kind of ways that this video information is going out there now, or will be going out there. So the Godcast is still going to be week-to-week. Perspectives yesterday, which will be released this Friday. This is Wednesday, so a couple of days that's going to be coming out. And what you might find is if you watch that right through, then it came on the back of the first catch-up. So you may well see the first catch-up after Perspectives. So if you find yourself, it's like a shorter version. The catch-ups are they're going to be like a shorter version. And sometimes they might not lead into the actual a full Godcast, as that one did. It was interesting how the whole thing unfolded, and then Boys Club on Monday night, and without going over it again and talking about the new stuff that's came out of it, came off the back of that kind of catch up, which is really just kind of where I'm at, day to day, and the fact that I'm feeling like doing these just now. It might not be the case in 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road. It might be the case next week I get bored with them, or it dries up. But in the meantime, while it's coming through, and my desire, and as always, it feels good for me just now, and it feels easy to put this stuff out. So the catch-ups are going to be shorter, less polished, kind of where I'm at. If there's something that I would like to speak about, rather than waiting week to week, and the Godcast, the preparations will still be going. I'm already thinking about next week off the back of Perspective yesterday, but these messages that are coming through, the catch-ups, it might be for announcements, it might be, my take on things, my perspective on, a specific area of the work in terms of what I'm doing and how it's helping people, or whether it isn't, and trying to work all that out, so it's more of a even less edited, just a kind of snapshot of where I'm at and what I'm thinking about, and how things are coming through. And this one, and I'm still not sure how I'm going to release it. It might just be to programme members. I may well just kind of pepper them in there, or just get them all out there and see how it goes. We'll work that out as we go. The squadcasts will be the first one was almost going to happen tonight. And I was a wee bit disappointed that it didn't. It was a last minute thing. In fact, it was during the night, last night during meditation. I put it out there, and then it can't happen tonight, which is fine. So it looks like we'll be starting to record them next week, and I suppose my desire just now, because I've spoke about this, even though not many people have heard about it because I've not really been released yet, but my desire, when I say something and it's hot with me, the topic's hot with me and it feels right with me, then the desire is to kind of follow up on that and see it through and get it out there. So that's kind of what the catch-ups are going to be. They're going to be a lot shorter. There'll be specific takes on certain things, and this is something that again, as it's coming up. I was walking the pooch this morning, and I was out for a good couple of hours. My van's off the road today, so I was out, kind of had a couple of hours, kind of nowhere to be, nothing to do, sun was shining, and no phone, in nature. And it's amazing the things that come up, and I'm absolutely blessed. I know that the time that I've got to do that kind of stuff, there was a time I didn't have that, so it's not always been this way for me. It's, I remember Wayne Dyer talking about the reason he's able to do the stuff he can do is because he's got people that take care of everything for him. And that's never been the case for me. There's always been a balance and almost like a juggling act, which is a wee part of what I'm going to, when I put this together at the end, that constant juggle is very much been like that for me with this, so but really grateful that I have got that time just now, that I'm able to find the spaces that this stuff comes through, and then I can talk about it, and then it will help somebody down the road at some point. That's always the intention with it. And the thing that came through this morning was again something that I spoke about in one of the previous Godcasts, and it was something Jill said a couple of weeks ago about the healing process. And I'm always talking about transcending. How do we transcend? How do we, is it possible, to get beyond it? I think at the time we were talking, it was a conversation that me and my wife were having, and healing from, the stuff, and specifically like childhood stuff, the traumas that so many people go through in childhood, and they carry them. In my experience, now we carry them, myself included, and I see so many people that are close to me that are carrying, this stuff that's happened, and there's all different ways that that it happens to them, and different ages and different stages and different, can be physical abuse, can be mental abuse, can be like sexual abuse, like significant traumas, losses, grieving process that happens at certain stages, losing people. There's so many ways that negative impact, and I see it consistently. I see it consistently in my own life, in terms of the stuff that I'm carrying. And there are people who are way like fucking that scale and how far that goes in terms of what people have been through. It's and the conversation was like, and the way Jill said it was like because I'm always going on about you must try, you transcend. It's all about transcendence. It's like addiction. That to me is like one of the holy grails. How do you get beyond addiction? Not just being able to cope with it and deal with it, but how do you transcend it? How do you not become that type of person? How do you shift your vibration from this perspective way of doing things, so that the addictive patterns or the addictive program or whatever the fuck it is that you're doing, the negative addictions, how do you get beyond that? And this is all about transcendence, so it's really, when she said that last week, it got me thinking, because that's what I'm all about. It's like, how do you, not just how do you be okay with it, but is there a way, is it possible to really get beyond it and to make complete peace with it? And it's been on my mind since she really said it, and it was a brilliant question. I love that. Jill challenges me in ways, not intentionally, but the questions that she asks and how making sense of stuff for herself, I suppose, a lot of the times, and then bouncing stuff off me. So when she asked that, it really lit something in me. How do you get? Can you not get past it? Is there a way to get beyond it, or is it that just it's something that's happened to you and you deal with it forever in this lifetime, and that's it? And then hopefully when you die and you move forward and you transition for this life, surely at that point, although maybe not, if you're then carrying the karma or the samskaras or the impressions or the imprints that have happened during this lifetime. So when do you actually get beyond it? Is there ever a time where you get complete relief from it? And that's the question I've been asking, and it's very, very difficult when you've been through stuff. That's the thing, because there's two ways, obviously, again, and here it is. There's the human experience, the third dimension, Jim, the human being, if you've been through stuff and you're carrying stuff, and when it's in your memory bank, when it's happened to you and it's in your nervous system, and there's a whole everything that goes with that in terms of the memories that go with it, the impact that it made, the imprint that it made on you. How you made your way through that at the time, the calculations that were made to navigate your way through that by your brain, to perhaps in survival state, or if you're the challenges that we face, the emotional challenges, the heartbreak and the heartache, or the soul break, or the soul ache, that kind of stuff. How do you, when you're kind of separating almost always at an unconscious level, the protection that can come in, and how you then navigate your way through that, the damage that's done. And the kind of, whether it's just a bruise or whether something's been decimated or severed, or there's all different levels to that. But then as you make your way through life, and these things, again, timing, and when these things are ready to come up and ready to come out, and whether that's done with intention, whether that's done by you're being intentional with it, and you think, right, now's the time, which never really normally happens. They normally hit you like a ton of bricks, and the space is kind of created for you almost. That can happen in many different ways, but you find yourself in a position where you're presented with this, whatever this is, and now's the time you have to deal with it. It's normally at a crisis point. That was certainly the case for me with the heavy stuff I dealt with in childhood at different stages, when it was at my lowest, when I was really, really not well, and I was in one of the hospitals, and for whatever reason, all this stuff I'd never even considered before just started coming up. So there's a timing for that, absolutely. And making your way through that from this low level human perspective, it's so difficult for so many. Obviously, we see that, and if you're going to, if you're taking the pills and you're going to therapists and you're getting asked the same questions every week, why it happened, where it happened, how it happened, who it happened, all this stuff, all the things that relate to the significant events, which may have been 50 years ago, 60 years ago, it might have been 6 months ago. It's all different, and there's different timings and stages to that as well. But when you're reliving it, and it's amazing, the detail. I'm 53 now, and the detail you can, and this is where you need to remember as well, like something that's possibly happened 40, 50 years ago, even something that happened last week, your recollection of the truth in terms of what happened that can be absolutely compromised as well, and no question about it, because again, what I mentioned, the defence mechanisms and how you perceive things and how you're able to cope with things and handle things as you're going through them, in that flight and fright response, when you're really in it. I think back to when I was in Ibiza, and I was like, my life felt as if it was literally on the line. Not at the time, because whatever the chemistry that was getting battered into my system to enable me to go through it, that's what allowed me to survive it, and take even the punishment, the physical punishment my body went through, to go through all that. At the time, it doesn't seem that bad, because you're in this, your body realises and your brain realises you're in this really, not the best place, and it's giving you the best that it's got in terms of the chemistry, firing it in so you can hopefully survive it. That survival mechanism is incredible. That whole coping and how it's amazing what the human body can go through and what it can make it through, and then when you come out the other side of that, and you see this so many times with soldiers with PTSD, they deal with it and they're in that environment and they're living it, and then they come out, and it's when they come back to reality and back to taking the wains to school and the door shuts and they get a chance to stop and think about it, the timing again of when this stuff comes up. So it's, from the human perspective, dealing with stuff that's happened, dealing with all the negative sides to that and the impact that it has on you, it's so difficult in so many different ways, depending again how much time you spend there. I would always, when people get in about this, I always give them the opportunity to tell their story once, so that I know who they are and what they're coming in with. Complete compassion and empathy, 100% for everybody that's suffering and struggling. The plan is to help the best we can with anything. So when you hear the story of them coming in, and you feel how bad it is, and you almost, a lot of the times you relive it with them. But then after that, once they tell the story once, at that point then, there's no point in telling it ever again. And very, very quickly, for me, it's right, okay, so if you want to get beyond it and start to move forward and not be living in that place, because if you're thinking about it and talking about it and reliving it every day, don't be surprised. Of course, you're generating the feelings and you're generating the memories, so you're literally reliving it. The unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what isn't. How the conscious mind, unconscious mind work, and how you navigate your way through these things, these situations. So powerful when you're thinking about something and you're reliving it, and when it's real, when you're being through it, you're reinforcing it, of course, and you're generating the chemistry to deal with that. So it didn't just happen to you once. The traumatic event, every time you replay it in your mind, every time you're thinking about it, whether it's conscious or unconscious, then you're going through it again, and at some level and in some way, and most people don't realise. And the kind of crazy thing with that is you're actually doing it to yourself. Again, most people don't know that, that it's just the way it is, and because the trauma is so locked in, you get into this the chronic loop of the stress and the stress response and the thoughts and the destructive they patterns, so that's something again that is really easy to break, and something that everybody needs to learn how to break and be aware of. It's not happening to you, and there absolutely is something that you can do about it to stop that cycle. That's tragic to see people are in that. I was in that loop of, just it's happening to you and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and there's not a fucking thing you can do about it, and you're reliant on them. When you talk about hopelessness and try to now about self-reliance, what we teach, but at the time you're reliant on the system, and that, even the best of the best, the doctors and the therapists and the medicines, and nothing works. Then very quickly I had to learn that, okay, so maybe the answers are learn that, and then start to do it in a different way. And that's where I'm at with this whole thing. There's the human perspective of what's happened to you, and that can be really, obviously, very, very difficult. A lot of people go through their life and that's they just live it from that place. They never ever get beyond it. They're in a constant state of trauma, almost literal trauma, because they're reliving it. They're taking it to bed and they're thinking about it, and with the best intentions, trying to get beyond it and trying to find relief and trying to make it better. But if you're in it in that level, and you're coming at it from that level of mind, that level of consciousness, where this is what happened, and and especially when the medications, and especially if the therapists keep talking about it, I need this. Okay, I need tissues and a sneeze. I don't know what's near just now. The last few times I've been on here, my nose is so bloody itchy. From that perspective of humanness and the ability to deal with it and transcend it, then you can't get beyond it. And I suppose that the initial step for me, this is part of the kind of waking up and the awareness part of it, is to realise what you're doing to yourself, and to know that there is absolutely something that you can do about it. I remember back when I had no feelings and no emotions, nothing, dead, hopeless just hopelessness, dead to the world, dead in the inside, blackness, and you're like, is there any way out of this? Is there, to never not have your feelings and not have your emotions, and 25 hours at a time, and really know well, and think, what is this? Is this what, like, fuck that? That's, it's blacker than black, and I understand, looking back now and where I was, I can understand completely why some people like take their life, and when at that place of hopelessness where there's no way forward. It's Hawkins used to talk about, beyond this point, abandon all hope. That's like the gates of hell. You're in hell, and there's no end to it, in eternity. And so, anybody that's there, anybody that is struggling, anybody that's not getting beyond it, and again, from that level up to dealing with it and managing it, whether it's through escapism or whether it's through the therapies or the stuff that's helping you, and you get a wee bit of relief, and you find coping mechanisms, you find tools you can actually use to deal, whether it's you're no sleeping, or whether you're having panic attacks, or whether, the PTSD is, whatever adverse effects it's creating within your body, that those elevated levels of stress over a long period of time, and no sleeping properly, and then add into that, Western diets, and in fact worldwide diets now, and everything else that we're dealing with, then the overwhelming can come, absolutely, no question about it. So the answer, the solution, and the way that I've been experiencing it, and the answer to this over the last couple of days, again, it's like, that is one way to do it, and it's for anybody that's there, we send you love. But again, this is, we're showing a different way of doing it, we're showing a different option, we're showing like solutions, the light, what is, no matter how bad it is, I stand beside that, no matter how bad it is and what you've been through, it's like when you reconnect back, when you experience this other side of it, when you get back to the light, when you learn how, that isn't the only way of living and doing and being in this life, the lower perspective, being Jim, being the guy, being the dad, the father, whatever that is, that story, that's a starter for 10, and that's one part of it for all of us. But at the same time, and this is where, what I've, again, penny drop realisation moments over the last couple of days, thinking about this in my meditations, when I'm in that space of alignment, when I'm in union, when I'm in coherence with the divine, when I'm sitting in meditation, when I experience those higher levels of bliss, for me just now it's coming through in very specific ways. The love of God in the beginning, when I'm doing my meditations, which just feels like I'm getting obliterated, like in a good way, getting blessed. Every single cell of my body is literally being blessed with this divine essence, this presence that we call love. Now, the love of God is what it feels like is coming through, and that's obviously wonderful. But then the light of God is something that's very different. This has been my meditations recently over the last few months probably, after, on the back of everything that's been happening with, the group and the transmissions that have been coming through from, I believe, my teacher, Babaji, man that's been in my life for the last 27, 28 years. The reason I'm doing this work, I do believe his work and his light is absolutely shining through, not just me, but there's many around about it just now who are tapping in. And when you understand and you learn, what it is, what that is, when you get that feeling, not just me talking about it, and not just like, because it's so difficult to explain in words. It's so difficult, you can't get it by me talking about it, no matter how much anybody that they can romanticize it, or they can explain it like perfect, they can capture it, which is really difficult to do when you're trying to explain this stuff. But when you understand what it is, and you have a new experience, and your awareness expands, and you're able to go inside, and you're able to like switch this off and give yourself a break as a starter for 10, like switch off that nervous system. That's the starter for 10 for everybody. That's why breathwork is so important. Like you need to learn, you need to understand the importance of being able to switch off your stress response the best that you can. For some people that's difficult, and it can take time depending on their diet and what they've been through and the environment and all that kind of stuff, what they're coming in with, the level of like chronic stress and toxicity they're carrying within them, in their mind, when's the last time they slept properly, when's the last time they felt good, when's the last time they experienced well-being. So there's all different levels to that. But when you come in and you go through it, for the first time's the best, because if you can really like get it your first time, that can be enough to like sell it to you for the rest of your life. Because when you've been in that place of suffering and struggling so long, and when you're living that trauma, or at least what you've been through in that trauma is playing out in your life, the addictions that come for that, the negative life experience in terms of who you become as a result of whatever happened to you, and how that affects your confidence and your development at different stages. There's so many bits to it, obviously. But no matter what all that is, no matter what you're coming in with, and this is where everybody's the same, when we can switch off our nervous system, if we can get to that place where, you're just breathing with proper function, which is so simple. And, when you see people get that, and the relief, because what it does is straight away, and my intention with it, and a big part of it, is to take you from the outside world, the circus, the stuff that's going on, and take you back on the inside world, to get you back into you. The reconnection is back into yourself, first and foremost, reconnection back into the physical body. But, when you go beyond that, and the mind calms down and slows down enough, and you get to go back inside the heart and back inside your soul, back into, these spaces where you carry your true essence, the spirit, the bit that can never die. When you tap into that, then the whole world changes. And for me, the last couple of mornings, when I'm in those places of union, when I'm in coherence, when I'm in my heart, when I'm tapped into the divine, and I'm in that flow state, and Babaji is the energy and the love and the divine light and grace, love, light and grace. That's the third one. When the grace is coming through, and you're in that space, and it's so difficult to leave it, and in those states, in that place where you're in full alignment, where Jim doesn't really exist. Obviously Jim is the vehicle, and he's the bit that's trying to connect into it, or the physical body and all that kind of stuff. When you go beyond that, and you experience like true union and coherence, and you feel the love of the divine, and you get to tap into it and take on the power of the field. You literally become, the intention is to become the field, to experience all that is, and to know that you carry a piece of it inside of you, and when you tap into it, you take on the power of it. And when you take on the power of it, that's where the transcendence takes place. Now, the problem with that is, and this is where I've had extended periods of being in those elevated states. I think at one point it was between probably 7 and 9 months where I was like that all the time. Very, very different. Everything was like impeccable was the way I was doing it. It was easy as well. The diet was impeccable. The where I was at in my life, the space that I had. The catching the wave, and then experiencing that enlightenment, and then on the back of that, just like riding that wave for months and months after it, where it just affected everything. I was a different human being. And then through time, you come back and you start to, you go between the two worlds, which is what this is all about. Again, the juggle. This is a juggle between the human experience and between, the spiritual life and life experience that you're doing both at the same time with this work. And for me, what happened, and this has happened a lot with, I remember like when I came back, and after I'd been partying and taking recreational drugs, and asking one of my teachers at the time, like, will it always be a thing there? Because even though I'd been through hell, and I had a calling, like, would you get back to, because that's probably what everybody was still doing, and there were great times and all that kind of good stuff, and it was fantastic, being free, and as well as all the benefits of recreational drugs in the early 90s, and the dance music, and from where I came from in terms of the bondage of like trying to be a professional footballer, and then to just let my hair down, and that was a great time, but I remember at the time, maybe 5 years out of it, and then asking one of my teachers, like, will I ever is there a possibility I'd ever get back to that? And it was maybe 10 years after it, and I remember him saying, like, you'll never go back there ever again. Your vibration has jumped too much, who you've became with the work you've done. And I was like, okay, so and I've never had a need or a desire to go back down that road again. It's fascinating because I shifted so much. So, carrying that across, can the same thing apply to the stuff that's happened to you? Can you transcend it and get beyond, the impact of those, negative experiences in your life? And it might only be temporary, but to find relief from it, and even temporary relief can be enough. If somebody's living that all the time, I was really blessed a few years ago to work with one of the suicide charities. I wasn't working with them, I get involved in it, and I would see people be dropped off at the door who'd literally tried to commit suicide that morning, and watching like that level of lockdown stress, and then seeing what happened when they just learned to breathe, and you switched off their nervous system, and they literally reconnected back to themselves, and all the voices and the literal insanity they'd been living like an hour before was gone, because you switched off the stress, and you helped them remember, the bit that was real. They took them back inside themselves, with doing a wee bit of breath work. So, the ability to get away from that, the ability to escape from that, even if it's just temporary, the ability to go and breathe and take 5, 10, 15 minutes to yourself, and tune in to the field, and with intention to reconnect back to the divine, and what can come through that, and the relief, and the feeling of wholeness, and the feeling of being in alignment, and that feeling of being one, that oneness with the divine, then at that point you transcend everything. Now, obviously, when you come back, you're going to be in two worlds. But for me, and the way that it's been over my life, and this is where the healing journey and how it's worked for me is like there's all different parts to it. And the faster your vibration gets, and the more you continue on this path, and the deeper you get into it, and the cleaner your system becomes in terms of what you're doing and who you're spending time with, and what's going in, what the input is. The cleaner that becomes, and the more intentional you become, and the quieter your mind can get, and the purer, I suppose, your heart, and that remembering and relearning process of the goodness and the power that's inside every single one of us. When you go on that journey, then the stuff that you've dealt with in the past, it doesn't stay the same, because your vibration and the way that it affects you, that absolutely changes. In my own experience, that's what it's been like for me, to the point where the people that I was able to forgive in so many ways, and myself included in that, for some of the stuff that I've done in this lifetime, so powerful, and that came as a result of, the vibration changing, the expansion of my consciousness, seeing things from different perspectives, and then you get to go back in and go, all right, okay, so maybe that's why they did that, and then this is all about breaking the chains, isn't it? So that you don't pay it forward and continue that cycle. That's what this is all about, so it might be temporary, it is temporary, I would say, but to experience the wholeness, the union, the coherence of being in alignment with the divine, to be in that sacred space, to be in your heart, to be in silence, to feel the power of God. It's, again, that word is just so many connotations, but to feel whatever that is, source energy, to feel that divine light, and to feel the grace and the goodness that's in it, and to know that you carry it inside you, and to know that when you tap into it, you take on the power of it. When you take on the power of it, the lower level stuff doesn't exist, so the worries and the traumas and the hardships and the heartaches, they disappear, and they're completely gone, because you're plugged in to something completely different, and it's kind of like, choose where Abraham Hicks would say, like, where are you putting your boat in the water? It took me a long time to kind of work that out, and bring into my life, but it's like, where are you spending your time? What are you thinking about? Are you spending your whole day thinking about the trauma and where you were and how bad it was and how you'll never get beyond it, and blaming and hating and killing everybody that's went against you, and how nobody understands, and that victim consciousness? Or when you've had enough of that and you realise that isn't working, then getting drawn towards this. And as I always say, the problem and the solution are two different places. So when you focus on the light and you spend your time in the light, and you understand what the light is, and you're able to connect into it, then obviously you get brighter. And when you get brighter, the darkness and the shadows and the stuff that's been there, eventually, it's my hope and the faith that I have is that it eventually leaves you in this lifetime, and certainly very quickly. Or maybe not, again, it depends how much you put into it, but for me it's how you're able to be okay with it, and get beyond it, and then eventually find the forgiveness, and eventually, so that you can, for me, teach it as an example and help other people that have been through it because of what I've been through, and finding this is my coping mechanisms, this is what I did to get beyond it, this is the stuff that I'm now able to do, and it's all towards the spiritual practices, every single bit, reunion, reconnection, alignment with the divine, the going inside and tapping into the field. That's where the answers are. That's where all of the answers are. You can't explain it in science. I know they're getting closer to maybe doing that now, explaining how the quantum field works, and but you're talking about things like intention and things like awareness, and the power of your intention to get beyond stuff and to heal and to transcend it, and that can be enough. And the work that comes from that, it's different for everybody, but there is a way. There absolutely is a way, and it's back to the way that it's meant to be. So we're here for a human experience. Absolutely, and there's all different levels to that, but the spiritual experience and the spiritual life, and I do believe we need both of them, and that for me is how we find that temporary transcendence and getting beyond it, and it's something that certainly for me, being aware of that now and learning the last couple of days, and it's dead simple, of course it is, but when you actually see it through fresh eyes and it makes sense in a different way, then things change, so there you go. Second catch up, not sure when this will be going out, but I'm kind of shooting the shit as it's coming through. I'm giving my perspective on things as it's coming through, so I can document it, so we can capture it, so we can leave it behind. So sending love, sending light, peace out, God bless, have a fantastic day wherever you are, and bye for now.